Israel has killed more than 54,000 Palestinians since October 2023. Gaza's infrastructure has been decimated, famine persists, and yet the bombardment and destruction continue with no end in sight. Despite countless attempts at reaching a ceasefire deal, with a besieged enclave now incapacitated and in ruins, why hasn't Tel Aviv ended its assault? Israel's stated goal of eliminating Hamas may not be the driving force behind the war. For Netanyahu, it may well be about staying in power, and possibly even staying out of prison. Before October 7th, 2023, Netanyahu's popularity among Israelis was beginning to wane, and he was set to stand trial. Since 2019, the Israeli Prime Minister has been facing 3 separate corruption cases, including charges of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust. These aren't minor scandals. They go to the heart of democratic integrity in a country that touts itself as the only democracy in the Middle East. A conviction could end his political career. His war has, however, been a lifeline for his survival, as it has allowed him to not only delay hearings related to a trial that could put him behind bars, but also distract public attention away from his scandals, including what many Israelis see as an unforgivable failure in preventing the Hamas attack on October 7.
Can we say that Netanyahu is using this war as a shield against his internal crisis, including corruption trials?
Absolutely. There are 2 main reasons why Netanyahu is trying to prolong this war. One of them is to prolong his own political career, to save himself from the consequences of the failure on October 7th. But that is a secondary reason. The main reason is Netanyahu is trying to create his legacy as the Israeli leader who expanded the boundaries of Israel, who finished the job in Gaza once and for all, who managed to accomplish what Ben Gurion failed to do in 1948, drive all Palestinians out from their homeland. And that is what concerns Netanyahu more.
Netanyahu isn't alone in his genocidal quest to flatten Gaza. He's supported by the most far-right government in Israel's history. His National Security Minister, Itamar Ben-Gvir, leads Otzma Yehudit, a far-right ultra-nationalist party that calls for harsh crackdowns on Palestinians and full Israeli annexation of the occupied West Bank. His Finance Minister, Bezalel Smotrich, heads the religious Zionism party, which also advocates for the annexation of the occupied West Bank and rejects the creation of any Palestinian state. However, Netanyahu's Likud party is losing support from within. As internal divisions deepen, continuing the war may be the only way for Netanyahu to keep his fragile coalition from falling apart, and for his notorious ministers to stay in power.
העסקה המתרקמת היא עסקת ניהול חמאס. אני קורא לחברי, השר בצלאל סמוטריץ', לחבור אליי וביחד לשתף פעולה נגד העסקה המתרקמת.
Furthermore, in a Channel 12 poll conducted in March, 70% of Israelis indicated they didn't trust the Netanyahu government, with 68% saying Smotrich was doing a poor job. While both ministers have gained a certain amount of notoriety among Israel's allies over their inflammatory statements, is Netanyahu a hostage to his coalition, as he sometimes claims to be? Or is he willingly and willfully embracing the rhetoric of his extremist ministers?
I think the idea of Smotrich and Ben-Gvir pushing Netanyahu to the far right is inaccurate. Netanyahu is the far right. He hides behind those 2 ministers as a convenient cover, as a fig leaf, to tell his European enablers, his enablers in Washington, to say, look, I'm a hostage to those 2 crazy ministers.
זה חלק מהכרעת החמאס, במקביל ללחץ הצבאי האדיר, הכניסה המסיבית שלנו, בעצם להשתלט על כל עזה, ולהוריד את החמאס מכל היכולת לבזוז סיוע הומניטרי. זו תוכנית המלחמה והניצחון. יש לנו מלחמה עצומה, עצימה ועצומה, ויש התקרבות, אנחנו הולכים להשתלט על כל שטחי הרצועה. זה מה שאנחנו הולכים לעשות.
Netanyahu might have victory set as his main objective, but when it comes to a post-war plan for Gaza, he's got nothing but destruction on his agenda, with proposals that don't take Palestinian rights or rebuilding the ruined enclave into consideration.
Netanyahu and his coalition partners, they have a crystal clear plan for post-war Gaza. basically Gaza becoming completely uninhabitable, so people would have to leave or would be forced to leave, and the rest that are staying will perish to death.
It's always changing. There's no one single plan here. But the best plan for them would be sending the Gazans away because of the demography issues. And this is important, I think.
Netanyahu may have hoped that the war on Gaza would be a useful distraction to steer attention away from his scandals and boost his image as a strong leader, and it seems to be working so far. But the March Channel 12 poll shows that he's losing the support of the Israeli public, with 72.5% believing he should take responsibility for October 7th and resign, and others frustrated that he hasn't led Israel to a clear victory.
A lot of Israelis are feeling sort of fatigue about the war, that it's not accomplishing its objectives, that they were promised a decisive victory, and that never came.
As the war fails to conclude without any progress, is Israel's closest ally also starting to lose patience? In a surprise move, the US held direct talks with Hamas in early March, and Israel wasn't invited. And on May 19th, the United Kingdom, France, and Canada warned, for the first time since Israel launched this devastating onslaught, that they may take concrete actions, including sanctions or formally recognizing the state of Palestine, if Israel doesn't halt the war and lift its blockade of aid.
Right now, he lost Trump's support, he lost United States support. He's not, he could not end the war. He could not bring back the hostages, and the economy is worsening. Even if it's enduring and resistant, there are a lot of problems for this situation.
Netanyahu's ongoing war on Gaza doesn't seem to solely be about defeating Hamas, or even returning the Israeli hostages to safety. Many critics agree that it's largely motivated by political survival, that of Netanyahu and his coalition, and of Israel's expansionist goals and extremist ideology, also projects of Netanyahu and his cohorts, Ben Gvir and Smotrich. The cost of a prime minister's political gamble has already been devastating, not just for the more than 2 million Palestinians trapped in Gaza, but also for the Israeli hostages still in captivity. As the war drags on with no clear end in sight, the question remains: how many more Palestinian lives will be taken for Netanyahu and his far-right coalition to stay in power?